Thank you, President Josh. Today's program is always one of my favorites. It is the Outbound exchange students. These are the students that went to another country for a year, and they're coming here today to tell us about their year of experience. Elise Atkinson and Emerson White are the two students. Elise is going to go first, so I'll introduce her first. And then while they're switching the PowerPoint slides, I will introduce Emerson. Elise spent 11 months in Denmark, living on a small island south of Copenhagen. She experienced the traditions and coziness of life in Denmark through 3 host families. It's a caring environment there, and the culture and the traditions that you'll hear about. With only 5.5 million people in a country that's larger than Massachusetts, Denmark is really a social and economic powerhouse. So they've been ranked the happiest country in the world, and Copenhagen was ranked as the #1 city in the world. So it's a wonderful place for an exchange student. We thank Dave Cook, who's a member of the Youth Exchange Committee, for serving as her counselor for the year. So without further ado, Elise Atkinson.
Hej, jeg hedder Elise, jeg er 18 år gammel, og jeg var en udlandselev sidste år i Nykøbing Falster, Denmark. Sorry? Hey? Alright, only Ella got that, I think, from Denmark. But my name is Elise Atkinson, I'm 18 years old, I'm a current senior at Lancaster Country Day School, and I was an exchange student last year in Nykøbing Falster, Denmark. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my year. Alright, so before I begin, I just wanted to explain a little bit about where Denmark is and what it is. I know it's a small country. So yes, it is only about 1.5 times the size of Massachusetts with 5.5 million people. It's just south of Norway and north of Germany. And just a couple things about it. It was ranked the #1 country the happiest country in the world, and the #1 city in the world was Copenhagen. They also pay some of the highest taxes in the world. Normally those two wouldn't go together, but they have a brilliant social system that works for them, where they get paid to go to college, and they get free health care, and frankly, it was incredible to see how a different social system worked. So, this was my city, this was Nykøbing Falster. It had just over 25,000 people in it, and it was a small island just outside of Copenhagen. So yeah, it was really nice to see how kind of a small, cozy, not really touristy city, how they lived in Denmark, and then I also had the big city really close by. So I loved living there. It was beautiful, it was right on the water, and then I also had one of the best beaches in Denmark about 10 minutes away from me. So on lunch breaks during school, I would go and eat my lunch there. We would go swimming, even though it was extremely cold most of the year, but that was their Viking way. And yeah, that's the downtown with the shopping, so it was a lovely, lovely place. This was my school. It was called Nykøbing School. It had about 750 people there from ages of 16 to 20. It was just their typical high school. I went to school there and I studied physics and chemistry. That was just kind of how it worked out. Wasn't really my specialty, but I had an awesome class that I loved, and the picture on the left is my last day of school when I graduated, if you could call it that. And clearly you can see I was very excited about it. But I really did have an awesome time going to school there. Along with my program that I did at school, we took a study trip to Iceland because we did physics and chemistry, and so we got to study a lot of the geothermal parts of Iceland, and this was another thing that I never expected that I was going to be doing on my exchange, but it was really awesome to spend a week with my class in Iceland during the winter. And then I had Copenhagen. Copenhagen wasn't the #1 city in the world in 2019. I love Copenhagen. I miss it so much. It has just over 1 million people in it, and it has the oldest monarchy in the world, and just the quaintest streets and amazing food. So, yeah. The picture on the left is a view from one of the coffee shops that I went to a lot in Copenhagen. That's just the downtown shopping area in Copenhagen, and then the picture on the right is me when I did a 10-kilometer run with some friends of mine. The run was called the Royal Run because it was actually run by the Crown Prince of Denmark. He led the run. So, and usually the Queen would stand on her balcony and wave to all the runners. But she was on her ship this year. It was very disappointing. But it was a really good time. So this was my first host family. I had 2 host parents, Bonnie and Peter, and I had 2 brothers, Kevin and Johan. And they were a really awesome family. They really treated me like I was their daughter. We had so much fun together. They welcomed me at the airport, as you can see on the left. And I spent a lot of time with them, even when I left their family. The picture on the right is when I came back for Christmas. We also went to, you can see, we went to Hamburg, Germany for a weekend. We went to see some of the 70-million-year-old limestone cliffs in Denmark from the Ice Age. We went to Tivoli at Christmas time. So they were my absolute favorite family. I loved every minute with them. They also took me on a ski trip to Norway for a week. This was something I've never experienced before, but it was so much fun. It was a crazy amount of endurance, and it was terrible for my calves. But I had a really good time. Yeah. This is my second host family. I just had 2 host parents, Lila and Renee. They were really nice to me. They were kind of just like friends. We had a really good time together. I spent the winter with them, which is kind of a hard time in Denmark because it's so dark and so cold. But we had a lot of fun, and I would cook every week for them. And I'm a terrible cook, but they learned, and they let me cook some meals that were okay and some that were not so good. But the worst that they said was that we could go to McDonald's if it was really that bad. But yeah, I had a wonderful time with them. And they also took me on some trips. I got to go to Sweden for 4 days. I went to Berlin for a weekend with them. And then I also did a second week-long vacation to the Czech Republic to ski. So I got really, really lucky with my host families and the trips that they were able to take me on. This was my third host family. On the left is my host sister, Sophie. She's also 18 years old, and she was an exchange student in Canada 2 years prior. And the picture on the right is the whole family with Andreas, my host brother, and then my host parents, Tina and Marcel. So by the time I got to them, I hadn't really seen that much of Denmark other than living in Copenhagen practically. And then I had been to a lot of places in Europe. So we covered going to the northernmost point of Denmark and the most southern point. So the picture on the left is the most southern point, which actually wasn't that far from us. And then the most northern point we were in, which was Skagen. And that picture there is in the largest desert in Denmark. I had no idea that was a thing. But yeah, we went there. So since I spent the year there, obviously I got to celebrate all the holidays. And so much of exchange is sharing cultures. So I learned to adopt a lot of their cultures and their traditions, especially around Christmas time. They celebrate Christmas from practically October to January, and I loved every bit of it. And so I have a lot of traditions to come back with me, but then I also would share some things with them. Like I made a Thanksgiving meal, and I had that with my first host family and some friends. And it was something that they really appreciated, and that I could teach them things about America that they maybe didn't know about because they only see what they see on media. So it was really nice. And then I also had a lot of great opportunities with Rotary. The picture on the right is all 180 exchange students that were in Denmark from 22 countries. And we actually got to spend a week together at a camp. And it was really awesome. We got to learn Danish together and just explore a little bit of Denmark. And then the 5 exchange students on my island were in the local newspaper. And so that article was about how people, or us being foreigners, we found a home in Denmark. So yeah, it was really awesome. And I also went to Rotary Rotary meetings with my club every single week for dinner on Wednesdays, and it was 2.5 hours. So it was a little lengthy. Sometimes they would be a little boring, I'm not gonna lie. But my Rotary club was really awesome, and they would take me to professional handball games. They would take me to Germany to see a Christmas market. They would take me to Copenhagen to see a parade. They were really, really kind of me, and they would try to go out of their way to show that they cared. So it was really nice. And just about a month before I left, 40 exchange students and I went around Europe for 3 weeks. We took a bus actually from Denmark down to Italy and then back up to Denmark. But it was really awesome to see 8 countries that I've never been to, and it was so many fun experiences with so many lifelong friendships that I made. And yeah, in 1 year, I was able to travel to 11 countries. I experienced things that I never even knew existed. It was a year that I have no regrets, and I really tried to make the most of everything. And yeah, I miss it every day, I can't lie. It's hard to be back. But I'm extremely grateful for my entire year. So yeah, with that being said, I'm just going to say tusen tak, which means 1,000 thanks. I'm so thankful to Rotary for this opportunity, and thankful for my parents for letting me go on this journey. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Elise. Very nice presentation. The Rotary Youth Exchange is one of Rotary's most amazing programs, in my opinion. Its mission is to spread world peace, one student at a time. And this club has been a leader, particularly in this district, since 1982, believe it or not. This year we have 3 inbound exchange students. Ella, is it Peru? Denmark. Ella from Denmark. We have Inez from Belgium and Santiago from Mexico. And now we are looking for students who want to go to another country. So if you know of anybody, and particularly you students, recruit students from your high schools, age 15 through 18, who may be interested in traveling to another country next year. We'd love to be able to sponsor them as part of our club's exchange program. Our second presenter today is Emerson White. Emerson recently returned from France, from a city that he can pronounce, but I can't. But it's on the eastern part of France, near Lyon. In the spring, I think Emerson also took the Euro Tour, and he may talk about that. I read the students' monthly reports because I'm one of the district youth exchange leaders. And I noticed in Emerson's reports, he focused on relationships. Relationships with his host family, relationships with his friends, relationships at school. And I wanted to read a quote from one of his reports. I was staring out the window, and as a breeze flew by, it finally dawned on me that I was such a far distance from home without my parents, siblings, or friends. And yet, I am incredibly happy. Emerson, the stage is yours.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Emerson. J'étais allé en France pendant une année. Hi, my name is Emerson. I was in France for a year, in case you couldn't tell. I think that's English. I don't think I've been back that long. So the city I stayed around, not exactly in, was Lyon. And it's the 3rd largest city in France, but in pretty much every other regard, it's second best only to Paris. When you look at, riches, when you look at the total urban area, when you look at it, it's basically just behind Paris. The view you kind of see here are 2 of the more important churches that are in the city, and they're in kind of the old part of the city, Vieux-Lyon. You see Saint-Jean, which is right here in the front, and then you see Notre-Dame-de-Fourvière. And both of those are very important to Lyon as people, including things like the fact that, they're very big on their cuisine, very big on their gastronomy. If anyone in here likes pig guts, I got a place for you. It was also where cinema had kind of really taken off in any sort of recognizable form. And so if you ask anyone from Lyon anything about their city, they will go for hours telling you about how great their city is and go see these places. And I know this from experience. But it is truly an incredible place to go. And I'm a little glad that I wasn't near to Paris and I didn't spend all my time there, but I actually got to see a place that I don't think a lot of people know about. It's not, Paris or Bordeaux. It's not one of the big popular cities, but I think it was still a great place to be. So in Lyon, one of their biggest festivals, it was right after I got there, is the Festival of Lights, or in French, La Fête des Lumières. It got a kind of an unfortunate beginning in 1463, kind of around the plague. A lot of stuff in Lyon centers around the plague. But it started as kind of festival of, everyone just kind of lit a little candle in their window and that was it. But now the city just kind of shuts down for an entire weekend for it. And you see, you can see here, this is like just barely a tiny snippet of what goes down. But every year you get about 3.5 million people. I mean, it's just such an incredible event because the entire city is lit up and you really get a nice view of the city that, I mean, even if you're there for a year, you only see this kind of thing once. And it's really just such an incredible view to be able to see. So you can see my school. This is a view from the river it was right next to. It was called Notre-Dame-de-Bellegarde. And it was, French schooling is a little bit different and a little bit the same. It's kind of a nice middle ground. It's still 5 days a week, but for example, on Wednesday afternoons you don't go to school, so I had time to go across the river and take photos of my school. Because what else would you do? Generally, we went a little longer, till about 4:30, but we also started a tiny bit later, so it was a little nice to get used to. I had a little bit more time to kind of wake up before I actually got to school. But a lot of the students don't have a ton of choice in what they do. A lot of the students are kind of told, you're going into the science track or the literature track. So it was very nice to come back here and be told, hey, you have to fill out your entire schedule for the year, and you're allowed to just kind of choose whatever you want, which was a relief for me. French cuisine is an unavoidable topic, especially in Lyon. You don't really get any beef or steak, and honestly chicken's a little rare. You tend to get a lot more of these lighter meals, a lot more of these leaner meats like veal. Salads are huge, and especially with some of the families I made, some of them made all of their stuff fresh at home. So we would have fresh baked bread. We would have, we would grow turnips out back. We would have rice growing by the chicken. It was not like we're going to go out to the supermarket. So it was very important for French people, and culture plays a very big role in what you eat, especially. But in France, you could go 30 minutes north and they'll say, oh, we eat only this and this, and you go 30 minutes back south and they say, no, we don't eat that. So it was a bit confusing when some of my friends lived far enough north that they had a different cuisine than the kids who lived further south with the school. So surprisingly enough, food was a debate in French schools. Good thing. The obvious, bread, cheese, red wine. The stereotypes are all true. There were multiple occasions where my dinner was literally cheese and wine. Except for me, it was just cheese. So it was still good though. I miss French food a lot. So this is a Lyon metropolis. It sounds a lot less cool in English. But you can see highlighted in red here is the actual city of Lyon, and that's where a lot of our students stayed. We had kind of a big district. I stayed a little bit up north. You can see kind of we're in the mess where all the names start to get. It's 5 or 6 words long. That's where I stayed. And so it's one of the biggest metropolitan areas in all of France. You could probably drive 2 hours and not reach the other end of it. But that also meant that you had a lot of different variety of stuff. You could go up in the mountains and you would see snow and people would ski in this area. Or you could go in and see just giant open wheat fields. Or you could go into the city. It was, we had a lot of variety. And for me, it was very nice because I got to experience a lot of different places without really having to go that far, which was a benefit for me. And it kind of follows the 2 rivers that meet at Lyon, the Saône and the Rhône. So it was very nice because you kind of had rivers. I enjoyed it. So this is just a tiny fraction of my friends when we were on our Europe tour. We had people from Europe, we had people from South America, from Asia, from we had people from every corner of the earth, and that's one of the greatest things about Rotary was I was able to meet people I would never have met otherwise, and I was able to make friendships that are definitely going to last me a long time, but not just with people from York, Pennsylvania, or from the college that I'm going to, I was able to make friends from all over the world, and I think that's one of the greatest things about Rotary is that on one hand, yes, it might seem like a 10-month vacation, but in reality, I was going to school, I made French friends, I made Swedish friends, I made Australian friends, I made Taiwanese friends, these kind of places that I probably would never visit if not for this place. I've now got a huge bucket list of places I'm going to go visit, and no money to actually buy the plane tickets there. So that's going to be the hard part. So we had our 2 bus trips, and I promise I'll press to do these because I could spend an hour talking about each one of these, but I won't force you to listen here for 2 hours. So we had our buses were February, and then you could choose between April and June. So I ended up going in April with a lot of my friends. And in February, we had a lot more of the French stuff. We had Paris, we had chateaus, we had Toulouse, and then we went down to Barcelona. So here obviously was the Eiffel Tower. That was a huge attraction for a lot of people, and getting it out of the way on the first day meant a lot of people went, oh cool, the Eiffel Tower, now what? Oh, we still have a week. But one of the highlights for a lot of people was Barcelona. It was a very nice city, and it was something that, when I started middle school, I didn't take Spanish for the sole reason that everyone else takes Spanish. And since then, I've kind of had this idea that, oh, Spanish is like the backup language. So I kind of got this idea in my head of, oh, Spain is just, you know, kind of where you go if it's just kind of there. But going there and seeing that was incredible. And, you know, being able to visit these kind of places and see these kind of things, like a church that's been under construction for 240 years. I guess I got lessons from the Mount Rose intersection. But a lot of things that we saw in Barcelona were experiences that I'm never going to forget for the rest of my life. We had open markets, we had, you know, fresh Spanish paellas, we had these incredible churches, and it was really, I don't know how many ways I can say it, it was such an incredible experience, and I'm very, very grateful for that. And then bus trip 2 was more around Europe. And unlike how Elise had from Denmark kind of down and then back up, we had a little more of the opposite. We had out from France and then back around. So we started off with Strasbourg and Munich were our first two kind of cities. Strasbourg was incredible. It's such a divide. If you look at a picture of York and a picture of Strasbourg, they're polar opposites. Strasbourg has all these beautiful colored two-door houses with the teal and the yellow and the pinks, and it seems like it's just perpetually spring. And it's just such a vibrant and living city. Not that York isn't, but. And then Munich was, again, German was never kind of my forte. That was a lot more my sister's territory. So I went into it thinking, oh cool, it's where we're going on our way. But it ended up being one of my favorite cities as well, was Munich. And it was something that I'm very glad that I was able to go there and see those kind of things. Czech Republic and Austria, which surprised me, a lot of people, this was their highlight. This was, I can't wait to go to Prague. And I said, why? And they said, because it's Prague. And that was about it. But when I went, it was very nice because, you know, growing up in the US, you don't always hear about, you know, let's learn about the Czech Republic, let's learn about Austria. You tend to hear, we're going to learn about stuff from the kind of American point of view. So even if it's world history, you have this kind of American spin on it. But being able to actually go to these places and see these things and learn history from another perspective, it kind of allows you to enhance your worldview a lot more than you ever would in maybe a normal history class. So being able to see these kind of things in real life, it was nothing short of astounding. It was incredible. And then we stopped in Vienna, which was, you know, obviously the birthplace of very many famous people, Mozart, Beethoven, Sigmund Freud. You have all these incredible people that come out of Austria, and you have all these. Vienna has just one of the highest qualities of life in the world. And you can see why if you go there. It's just such a nice, clean city. It's just such a nice, open, it's so rich, full of culture. You can always tell that the people there enjoy living there. And if you ever ask someone from Vienna, oh, where are you from? They go, oh, I'm from Vienna. It's the greatest place in the world. And to them, they're right. It's an incredible place, and I would never fault someone for saying they're from there. But Italy was kind of the one I was looking forward to. Because, you know, you always see in the movies, oh, it's Italy, it's the romantic place with the pasta. So being able to go to Venice and actually see, you know, the streets that are, the canals filled with water, and you get to see, you know, the Rialto Bridge and San Marco Plaza, and oh my God, all of the tourists. You can't go anywhere in Venice, which I guess I should have expected. But it was incredible to see these kind of sights, and it was incredible to see just a whole other culture. And being able to go through, I think maybe a dozen cultures in 2 weeks was just, it was incredible, and it was a great opportunity. But I won't keep you here for 2 hours talking about how incredible it was. And then obviously, at the end, we stopped with Chamonix, which is one of the highest, which is the area in France that holds one of the highest mountains, Mont Blanc. And it's a very big skiing resort for a lot of people, and living there, I'm kind of surprised I wasn't there already. But it was also a stark contrast from, you know, Venice. It was this big open area with canals, and it was super hot, and then 2 days later we were all freezing up in the mountains. But gladly take freezing up in the mountains than, you know, and just doing nothing and sitting at home and, you know, practicing French. It was an incredible experience, even though most of us were miserable and shaking and cold. But and then we finished off our trip with Geneva, and it was really cool for me to go see the seat of the UN, and you see this giant water fountain that stretches however many feet up in the air, and it was something I didn't know I was going to be, you know, I didn't realize I was going to fall in love with Geneva, or that I was going to fall in love with Europe or France, or just any of the stuff that I fell in love with. It wasn't something that I was expecting, but through Rotary it was something that I was able to actually experience, and seeing these kind of things was just, I feel like I'm repeating myself, it was incredible, but it was 100% worth, you know, all of the time, all of the preparation, and all of the homesickness. It was absolutely worth it to be able to see this kind of stuff, to be able to see, you know, the 300-foot water fountains and the astronomical clock in Prague and the very crowded streets of Venice. It was still, it was worth everything that I gave into it. And I guess that's what I kind of want to come away with, is that, you know, thank you. Merci beaucoup. This is an incredible opportunity, and I can't thank anyone in this room enough, anyone in Rotary enough, or anyone just in general enough. I can't thank my parents enough. I can't thank Rotary. I can't thank York Suburban. I can't thank anyone enough for this incredible opportunity. And I'm very, very grateful. And I'm also rambling a lot, so I'm going to stop now.